Self-reflection and introspection and honesty, and that's the hard part. We are going to talk about our worst habits while playing Dungeons and Dragons. Just something you know you do and you don't want to do it anymore and you're trying to break out of that habit. It just, it's... So I came up with a pretty, far more than I thought I would, list of some of my personal bad habits. And I'm just going to talk about them. Maybe it's something that you do as well, or maybe you aren't aware of it and this could help you become aware of it. But I'm trying to be honest with you and letting you know that, hey, these are things that I do and I'm trying to be better about it as well. No one is a perfect player. We're all trying to improve in different ways. And this is me trying to say, here's how I'm trying to improve. I would love to hear your thoughts on any of these as I go through them in the comments down below. Or if you got any ones that you know that you're got bad habits of, let me hear about those too in the comments because I also love it. So tell you what, I'll start. I've got way more bad habits as a dungeon master than I do a player because I've been far more of a dungeon master my whole life than a player. But I still have bad habits as a player. For example, starting off, whenever I make a new character, I always use the point buy system. Now this isn't strictly a bad habit in that it's detrimental to the game or myself playing, but it ends up being kind of the same every time I make a new character. Because the point buy system is very, very rigid. It's always, everything starts at 8, you have 30 attribute points, here's how you spend them. And I almost always end up making them all the same way. I've got one really good stat, one pretty good stat, 2 average ones, or like 3 average ones, and then one negative one. On anytime I use it. And that's fine, because you can make different characters that way, but it's just a very mathematically similar character every time I make one. So I think I should try to open myself up to considering other ways of creating a character, such as, doing the 3d6 die rolls per attribute, or doing the 46 one, take away the lowest die roll, and then attributing them to where you want, or taking them away, or having to go down the line is super rough and rigid, but those are just ones I always do. Whenever I make a character, I always use the point buy system, because as from a gaming standpoint, to me, that's oh, this is the most fair. It makes the most sense, because everyone starts off with the same number of attribute points or whatever, so however we choose to spend them, at least we're all even, right? I don't know. I'm also who cares? It doesn't have to be all the same. You make whatever character you want. Again, back in AD&D rules, characters that were aggressively average were great. If all your stats were in the 9 to 14 range, awesome. You didn't roll poorly at all. Sure, you didn't get an 18 on anything, but you're not bad at anything. So that's just something that I really thought about when I was making my characters. I always use the point buy system, and it's just, I don't know, maybe I'm just tired of that, and I just need to try something else and just kind of see what comes out of that. Related, while I'm making my different characters, I always end up playing the same character. I've talked about them numerous times before. There have been several iterations of my human rogue, D.F. Woodrow, and I realize I always play him, but give me a break. I like him. He's fun to play. I enjoy playing it. I love playing rogues, and I love playing that specific character. But I always end up playing DF in different places, even in different systems, or different kinds of games. So that's another bad habit of mine, is along with the point buy system, I'm always playing the same characters. And if it isn't DF, I usually go to Wraith the Barbarian is another one I go to as well. Or even if we want to go way, way back to basic D&D, I was always playing the elf, being a fighter magic user. Haven't really expanded a whole lot beyond that, and I really should. I would love to try a druid sometime. That could be really cool. Or even I think maybe a different kind of cleric. Not a healing one, or even a battle specific one, but a cleric under a domain that's not strictly about combat in any sense could also be cool. I would love to try a Warlock as well. I know I need to do that, but I'm like, but DF's cool. That's another bad habit of mine. I'm always playing DF, and I want to try to do different ones. Not to mix things up a little bit. Like I said, I'm always more often a dungeon master than I am a player, and I know I've got really bad dungeon master habits, and I want to be better about it. So starting off with like the most basic, whenever I'm the dungeon master and I'm beginning a new campaign with different people, I try to start them at low level, 1, 2, or 3, because I like to see where they start off at, rather than starting them at like level 9 or 10 and throwing heavier things at them. I like seeing that character growth. But I kind of default to using the same monsters over and over again as their like intro monsters. It's like, hey, you're level 1. You know what you're gonna fight? Kobold. Huh? Yeah, you didn't see that coming, did ya? Oh, you didn't want to fight a kobold? Well, how about a goblin or two? No? You want to fight something a little bit harder? Orc? Hobgoblin? Bugbear? Like, these are all fine monsters, and I love them all to death. They're classic. But I'm always using them. It's that safety net, you know? Like, that's where I always kind of default to. Yeah, I can try to mix up some other lower level monsters. Maybe use some oozes, maybe some mephits, some imps or something. Like, I know I can change it up, but at the same time, like, dude, I love kobolds. I will use them any opportunity I can get, especially if I start off with like little, like kind of, like mugging kobolds attacking your caravan or whatever, but then later on get like the dragon disciple kobolds where they have wings and spellcasting abilities. Oh, that's cool. But dude, I'm always using them. Gotta break out of that, especially if I'm playing with the same players I've been playing with for 25 years. I can mix things up for them too, you know? Speaking of players I've been doing that for a long time with, this is another bad habit of mine that I know was a bad habit now, but at the time, I thought it was the coolest thing. You guys ever do this as a dungeon master? Where your party splits up. You don't make it happen. The party just decides that. Say 2 of us go this way, 3 of us go that way. And they just split up and they go into different rooms. And in such a way that as characters, they would have no idea what's happening to the other half of the party. So, as a dungeon master, I would say, okay, you guys split up. You 3, leave the room. And they would just like go upstairs and hang out for a while, and I'm just playing D&D with just this half of the party right now as I go through everything that's happening with them. And again, at the time, it was really cool, because like, oh, now there's secrets, like, that half the party doesn't know what's happening to these guys. Who knows what they'll tell them? Will they tell them the truth, or will they hide things, especially if you find some secret treasure or something, or a secret about another party member? And vice versa. What if we're doing something with them and they learn something about the other party? And it's like, ooh, yeah, now I'm sowing the seed of discourse within the party themselves by splitting them up. Do not do this. It is a bad habit of mine. Party members can split up as much as they want. That's on them. Or maybe there's a pitfall trap and someone ends up in a different level of the dungeon. That's okay too. But physically removing players from the game, from the room, is a bad idea. Because what ends up happening is for like, I don't know, an hour or 2 hours, half the players here aren't playing. They aren't even observing and at least enjoying the story and game that's unfolding before them. They're just off somewhere else playing Smash Brothers on Nintendo 64 or something. I did that so many times because I thought it was just so cool if people like had information that the others didn't. But, you know, I recognize now like that's not the healthiest thing. You're just gonna end up with bored players, and it's just better for everyone to be there and trust that they'll roleplay their characters in such a way that they aren't metagaming the information that they got from the other party members. And then that way they can still see what happens to their party members so that they become invested in their other party too. I will never do that again. It has been like a good, I don't know, probably 15 years since I've physically removed people from whatever session was currently going on just because the party split up. But I know I did that, and I'm never going to do that again. Now, if you've ever done that before, I know I can't be the only one, right? Either way, it's a bad habit. Related, as a player, I know I've done this. I've seen other people do it, where when it's not your turn. Because the party is split up, or because you're in the middle of combat and you're like, all right, my turn. I run for it, put the second hand onto my bastard sword so I get the extra damage on there and do a swing against whatever target as hard as I can. Hit them, roll for damage. Cool, I hit him for 14 damage. My turn's done. Take out the phone. Or worse, you ever see someone start doing this? We're in the middle of people talking about whatever. Maybe it's really important to the plot, or someone's just trying to figure out very intricate things on their turn. So you just start seeing one of the other party members stacking their dice, seeing how high they can go. This is a bad habit. I'm trying not to do that either. And I understand like the kind of that I guess almost ADD tendency where when it's not involving you, you kind of zone out. And I recognize that as a bad player trait because it's kind of disrespectful. It's almost as if I am signifying to other people, I don't care what's really going on about you. I'm not invested in it and I don't care. I know this is a story that we're all telling together, but if it's not about me right now, I don't care. And that's just a bad habit. So something I'm definitely trying to break. Almost want to make it a rule where once we're at the table, no one's allowed to take out their phones. Just put them away. Just everyone please try to pay attention. That's something as a dungeon master that I can try to enforce as well. But and if you're a player, this is something I try to recommend for you too, that when it's someone else's turn, it's so good and so healthy to pay attention to what they're doing as well and show that investment, because when you're all invested in each other, then everyone's having fun, even when it's not necessarily their turn, if that makes sense. As a player, because I've been a dungeon master so much, I've done that thing where I've read the monster manual so many times, I've read the dungeon master manual so many times. You just kind of inherently know things and remember things, such as, I don't know, how hard a specific monster is. So when you're playing and the dungeon master says, oh, this monster is now before you and it's ferocious and you're scared for your life. And I'm like, man, I don't know, his armor class is only 13, he's got 56 hit points and there's 5 of us, so I think we'll be okay. Having that inherent knowledge and then metagaming that into the character, oh, it's so bad. But it's so difficult because I already know all the monsters. I can't unlearn that knowledge. And that's where like the role-playing part comes into play, because like I know what this is. Clearly it's a whatever hag or a blade spider or something like that. I know what it is, I know what it's capable of. But I have to be like, but my character doesn't. How would this person react to seeing this for the first time? Would they actually think they stand a chance, or would they try to run away or whatever? And that's just hard. That's so hard, especially when you're both a dungeon master and a player. I feel like that's something a lot of people know or have done at the very least, because we just read the monster manual and we see what their hit points are, we see what their attacks are, we can see if they can paralyze or mesmerize or charm or banish you to another plane of existence for a brief while or whatever it is. So just, it's hard to not have that kind of information just in my brain. I as well pull it out so I'm not cheating necessarily, but I'm not playing it 100% accurate as to the situation that especially the dungeon master desires. So that's something I try not to do as well. Even though when I clearly know what it is, I'm making a point to not act like I know what it is or how well I'm doing or what the armor class is to even hit it, or if it has weaknesses or whatever. And that's super hard because, again, you can't unlearn information. Some of my worst, going back to being a dungeon master for a second, some of my worst dungeon master habits is, this was much more true, again, probably closer to like 3rd edition, and it came from playing so many different Dungeons & Dragons video games, especially like Baldur's Gate 1, Baldur's Gate 2, Neverwinter Nights, is that I was really, really bad about forcing a cutscene onto the players, where I basically like wrote out like a whole page of a narrative saying they meet this person, this thing is happening. There are times where I even would write what their characters do. It's like, all right, you go do over here and you feel this way. And it's like, that's not up to me to decide. That's up to the player to decide. So I'm like, oh yeah, and in the middle of this cutscene, as the king is talking or whatever, you see the bishop next to him pull out a sword and sneak up behind the king and then stab him in the back. And then it's like, oh no, there's nothing you can do. It was a cutscene. Sorry, man. Aw. Even though, as I was describing that action, one of the players is like, I pull out my crossbow and shoot him. And as a dungeon master, I said, wait, no, I'm not done yet. You can't interrupt this. That's so not cool of me. That's not good. Avoid the cutscene. Players always have agency in any situation. And if you're describing something and they want to react to it, you let them react. Whether they actually make it or time, that comes down to the die roll. But at least give them the option, because if it feels like you're taking that power away from them and they don't have agency in the story or anything like that, well then, what's the point of them playing? What's the point of them having a character and playing it how they want? I haven't done that in a long time, but it was something I know I did a lot. Again, like, remember when you play like Baldur's Gate 1 and you open it up and it does like that really cool like deep voice narration? It's like, the air is cool with the morning mist hitting your skin. I would write shit like that. That would take like 7 minutes to read through. I thought it was cool on how you're supposed to do it. It's not. You get the information out there, you make it descriptive so that it's colorful and you can paint that picture for the players, but the action should always be there and they should always have that agency. And I realized as I was talking about that, I mentioned that if they wanted to react, you let that go down to the die roll. And this was a topic of a larger discussion that I had in a previous video, where as a dungeon master, I would sometimes flub the die rolls to kind of adjust, slightly tweak how things kind of play out, to let players do maybe a little bit more damage to finish off a monster by lowering his hit points, or making certain monsters more threatening by increasing their hit points or making them deal more damage to them, or if they try to do something really, really cool, but it ruins all my plans, so I just say they fail. Again, watch my other video about this called The Art of Flubbing Die Rolls, where about dungeon masters lying to you to help facilitate the game. And I realized as a dungeon master, that was something I did too often. Again, and that's where the art comes by. I do think you should be able to flub die rolls or hit points or whatever when needed. And that's the important part, when needed. When it's done too often and you're changing outcomes all the time, what's the point of the die roll at all? And that was something that I did as a dungeon master. I feel like I was flubbing things almost too often, and I kind of became over-reliant on it. And I guess that kind of also goes back to the cutscene that I was talking about, where I was kind of forcing a narrative on the players and just be like, no, it's going to turn out this way because that's what I prepared for. So a bad habit of mine was changing dice rolls too much just to get an outcome that I desired, rather than going down whatever path appears before us based on the die rolls, because that can be way more exciting and way more interesting for both the players and for myself, because if I don't know what's happening, suddenly this is a really cool story for me too. So that, again, watch my other video about it for a deeper discussion on it, but it's something that like you can do, but if you do it too often, that gets dangerous. And as a younger, more inexperienced dungeon master, I think I did that too often. But I'm aware of it now, and I realize sometimes things are just better if, things come out how they come out. There we go. That were some of my worst habits while playing Dungeons & Dragons, both as a player and as a dungeon master. There's plenty for either side. I could probably think of a ton more if I really put my mind to it. But again, I would love to hear yours, because this is such a fascinating subject that we can all cover. And it's not like a guilt trip or saying you're bad at playing D&D or anything like that. It's just like small things that we can do to hopefully increase our fun and increase fun for other people. So again, if you have any bad habits that you personally do, or anyone that that I do and you do it yourself, I would love to hear your experience with that. Again, please tell me in the comments. This is such a fun discussion. I would love to hear all of it. Or hit me up on Twitter, use that hashtag DNDecember, and I will look through that and see that as well. But man, I was just some of the worst habits. I'm like, why did I do that? Hopefully I'm better now.